Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. Actually, today we have a very special, very special show for you today. My co host and myself are excited to have none other than Miss Christine McCarron joining us today. But as the master class, as the master builder myself, and as my co host, and I continue to bring to you the principles of Think and Grow Rich, we started this year with the principle of desire. Now we're on the principle of faith. But what is faith? For you, what does it mean? What is faith? You see, when Napoleon Hill was asked by Andrew Carnegie if he would take 20 years of his life without being paid a dime and devoted to developing a philosophy for success by researching the principles of failure and success, by interviewing over 500 individuals, some successful, some failures, and come up with a philosophy for success, Napoleon Hill had to have faith. Now, what is faith to you? Napoleon Hill says that it is the starting point of all achievement. Think about that. It is the basis of all miracles. It is also the only antidote for failure. It is also the element and the chemical by which, when you mix prayer and your desire and you connect it with the infinite intelligence, it takes faith. It also transforms ordinary individuals like myself and many of you into something even greater by the utilization of your faith. It is also the only agency by which you can connect with infinite intelligence and cosmic habit force. Now, everyone has faith in their own way, but today we're going to share with you an individual who exemplifies what does faith look like? What does that faith look like? So I'm excited before we get started to share with you our co-host, Mr. Galen Bingham, and also Mr. Peter A. James. Yes, Mr. Peter A. James as our co-host, and they are going to share with you from their own perspective a little about themselves. We're going to start with Peter because when we go to Galen, and Galen will share the 13 steps. Good morning, Peter James.
Good morning, Ann McNeil. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with everyone this morning. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. And today I'm excited because we're jumping into one of my favorite chapters. And I think I say that almost with every single chapter. One of my favorite chapters in Napoleon Hill's phenomenal book, Think and Grow Rich, the chapter on faith. And the word faith conjures up so many thoughts, images, and individuals. If I say, do you have faith? We often think of religion. We often think of a whole lot of other stuff as well. Faith for me has been analyzed for centuries. My favorite book says the faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. If you think about that right there, what that says in and of itself is that faith can't be touched. It can be it cannot be physically touched, but it can be manifested. Napoleon Hill goes on to say in the first sentence of this chapter, faith is the head chemist of the mind. And I like to think that faith is what many of us have when we don't know what exactly the future will look like. We have that faith that it's going to be all right, especially in our darkest moments. Ooh, we'll dive into that a little bit, I'm sure, today. But I'm excited because I think, and we have a phenomenal guest today who knows Think and Grow Rich very, very well. And we're going to badger her about this faith topic today. And I'm excited for that as well.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. And next we'll go to Galen and he's going to share his perspective. And then we're going to go right into what we call those 13 principles. Galen, good morning.
Yes, good morning. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist and CEO of Kill Global Coaching and Consulting. We help leaders bake permanent success into their work and life. This is a really, really important element of the process. And for me, faith is the complete trust and or confidence in someone or something. And I often think of this image of if I were to walk up to a chair and I believe that chair is going to stand, but I don't have total faith. I may sit in it, but I'm going to be tentative, right? I believe that this chair is going to hold me. But when I have faith, I don't even think about it. I just go ahead and do what I need to do. I'm actually thinking about other things that might be dependent upon this chair doing what it was designed to do. And there is just something magical when you think about these principles in that same way, where you're not even thinking about the principles. You just have this confidence that they're going to work. You don't have to know how they work. You don't have to know why they work. You just have this faith that they're going to work, and therefore you can just apply it to those things in life that you most desire. And you know, like I said, important element of the entire formula and process. We've started this with desire, which is the first principle. Desire is the turning point of all achievement. It is where everything begins. And once you have this burning desire, you move to the step that we're talking about this week and starting to this month and starting today, faith, which is the visualization of the belief in attainment of your desire. We then will go to auto suggestion, which is the medium for influencing the subconscious mind. The next is specialized knowledge, personal knowledge or observations. That's really important too, because as we learned from Napoleon Hill, everyone has general knowledge. But it's the specialized knowledge that will distinguish you and that will allow people to give you the money that you are desiring or whatever that thing might be. Imagination is the workshop of the mind, and that's where you start creating in your mind those things that you want to manifest in a physical reality. Um, and then once you've created this image, you move to the next principle, and that is planning and organization. That's where you crystallize your desire into action. A dream without a plan could be considered a hallucination. It's not going to happen. You're just dreaming about it. So, organized planning is about crystallizing your desire into action. And then we move to the next principle, which is decision. And this is where you do as the Latin root would describe. You cut off all other options other than this plan that you have. The only way out is through. That's what decision means. Even at its Latin root, it means to cut off all other options, and that's actually how you master procrastination. The next principle is persistence. This is the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. One thing I know for sure, the first time you try a thing is probably not going to be the time it's going to be successful. So you've got to learn that energy. You have to learn the principles that will allow you to be persistent in the face of things not going right the first time you try it. And then we move to the principle of the power of the mastermind, and that's what you're getting to watch and observe when you see us every Saturday morning. We are a mastermind group, And Napoleon Hill suggests that when two or more like-minded minds come together, a third mind is created. And that's the magic of bouncing ideas off of people who are trying to go in the same direction that you're going in, who have a like mind, and really are providing insight into and around things and challenges that might come in your way. And then we move to the mystery of sex transmutation. And when people say sex, you often think of the physical, and sex absolutely is physical. But there's also an emotional, there's an energy element of that, and that's where we want to focus on how Napoleon Hill describes you transmute that same kind of energy that you use when you're trying to attract someone. You want to use that same kind of energy to attract the resources that you need in order to achieve your object of desire or your goal. The next principle is the subconscious mind. This is the connecting link. This is where you tap into that part of the brain that really works, whether you want it to or not. The subconscious mind is always working. It never sleeps. And the goal here is, rather than using your subconscious mind by accident, how can we use it on purpose? How can we put the subconscious mind to work on those things that we deem to be important to achieving our goal? We also spend some time with the next to last principle on the brain. How the brain is structured, how the brain is the receiving and the sending station for thought. And you might be picking up signals that you intend to. You might also be picking up signals that you don't intend to. So how can you make sure that, again, you're using your brain on purpose rather than the luck of being in the right place at the right time, picking up on the right signals that might help you. And then that leads us to the last principle, which is the sixth sense. And I love the way Napoleon Hill has structured all of these principles. He's basically giving you all the ingredients. He's telling you how all the parts work. And then he says, put all that aside and just kind of step into your sixth sense, that small voice that's telling you this is the direction that you need to go. These are the opportunities that you need to say yes to. These are the things that you need to stay away from. And there's power in that. That's not just something that just happens. That's actually the infinite trying to tell you, trying to advise you, trying to make available to you those things that you need to find a practical way find a practical way of executing against your desire. So those are the 13 steps. It's almost a success formula. When I talk about this, it's even hard for me to stop at just the 13th step, because if you're going through this particular version of the book, there is an epilogue that is so powerful. It really, one of my favorite parts of that epilogue talks about how to outwit the six ghosts of fear, because fear happens to be the biggest obstacle standing in all of our way between what we say we want and our ability to actually achieve it. So Napoleon Hill doesn't just stop with his success formula. He gives you advice on how to identify and overcome the biggest challenges that tend to stand in your way. If you have goals, if you have aspirations, and you're not going through this formula at the rate that we're taking you through, that we're taking you through it, my question is, what are you doing? What are you doing if you're not leveraging these principles, which detail how the world works and how you can achieve your success on purpose? So back to you. I could stay on this forever, but I'm going to go back to you, Miss Ann.
Well, listen, I think that when you look at our guests today, everything you just shared, in my mind, Galen, she exemplifies that. All 13 principles, yes. So let me just share with all of you someone who's actually become a friend, a strategic partner, a masterminder with so many of us, Miss Chris McCarron. Good morning, Chris. How are you this morning?
Doing really well, Anne. Thank you very much for the beautiful introduction. It's so nice to be here with all of you this morning. And I want to say how grateful I am and how honored I am to be kicking off the faith chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters, as you know.
Absolutely. Well, let's tell everybody a little bit about you. In 2008, Chris, you made some decisions in your life, and one of them was to uh, change some things in your life. And for everybody else, Chris is I call her a real estate czar. She became a real estate agent in 2011, got her broker's license, and shortly after that, we met at a national speakers event. She will talk about that later. But Chris has helped literally, and she doesn't know this yet, she's helped countless numbers of people with her podcast. She's going to talk to you about that. But also, Chris has become a visionary, I'm going to call it, for women who are not as astute in real estate investing. She's made a commitment to help women in particular learn how to change their life from becoming a real estate investor. And she also, which is close to my heart, is in construction, but in repairing real estate properties that she owns. So, with that, Chris, welcome to the show. And if you would introduce yourself to others and telling us a little bit about yourself and how did you come upon this book and these principles?
Thanks, Anne. It's interesting because I had been fumbling my way through life, I guess you could say, and I had been introduced to the book many, many years ago. It's one of those things. If you are having any exposure at all to the world of self-improvement, then you're going to stumble across Think and Grow Rich, because it's the I want to say like a founding principle. It's like the dictionary for people who are wanting to achieve success in their lives. And so I read it, but I read it the way you might read, a murder mystery. You know what I mean? I just read it like, oh, that was really interesting. And then I put it on the shelf. I didn't apply any of the principles to myself. I read it and I thought, okay, that's nice. Put it away. Never memorized, never did anything with the self-confidence for it. Never did any of the steps that they suggest. I just read it and put it on the shelf. And it wasn't until, as you were alluding to, Anne, what happened that sort of changed my life, I guess I would say, is that I turned 50. And I was like, oh no, what happened? You always think you're really young, and then all of a sudden you hit 50, you're like, oh man. So, and I realized I just hadn't really done anything. And I got into this kind of a funk, and I thought, oh man, I just wasted my whole life and blah, blah, blah. And luckily for me, 3 weeks later, my aunt turned 100. And I just had this huge paradigm shift saying, like, oh my God, I still have 50 more years, so I thought I better get moving. And that was when I just sort of started to think about, what do I actually want my life to look like? What should it be? What should be happening? And I realized somehow in my mind, I got this idea that I would really love to be a speaker, that I would love to be able to help people, as you were saying earlier. And I am a real estate agent, and I do have a passion for young and old people. At 50, I found myself with zero retirement savings, no skill or ability to invest, nothing. And I thought, wow, this is not, ideal. So anyway, I have since then got to be a real estate investor. And I wrote a book called Empower Your Inner Millionaire, a woman's guide to financial freedom through real estate investing. And that's what I've made my passion. I have, seminars and masterminds and all that around helping women become real estate investors. And I don't think that answered your question.
No, it did actually, and it also brings me to ask you to share with our audience about the book you wrote, your first book, Empowering Your Inner Millionaire. Can you share why you wrote that?
Sure. Yeah, I just felt that it seems like if as a it seems like a man's world, I guess you could say, that, when you think about real estate investing, a lot of people think about, getting a call at 2 a.m, the toilet's broken, and you just think, and a lot of women think, I just couldn't do that. I don't want to knock on the door and have this big burly guy answering, and he's not going to pay his rent, and it's actually not like that. And there are so many different ways to invest in real estate. And I just wanted to really share that because it's such a great way for everyone to achieve a legacy and a passive income stream. And then I just really wanted to start. It's almost like a primer. The book is almost like a primer for a woman to take the book and say, okay, I'm going to read this book. And by the end of it, I feel like I'm going to at least have some ways of investing in real estate that could work for me. And I'm going to create a legacy for my family. And yeah, so it's really a mission to open that door to women. I mean, there are a lot of women real estate investors, but I don't think it's a path that most women think of for themselves.
Well, what I enjoyed about your book, Chris, is that it's written for women who traditionally don't think about how to. And so I want to go to Galen and also Peter, because I want to really begin to go into the principles of how do you use your faith in particular. And there's a special part of this book that we are sharing. Actually, I'll talk about that later. That's in this faith chapter. But Galen, I know he has a couple of questions, and then we'll come back to Peter. Thank you, Galen.
Yeah, I want to, for my question, I want to go specifically to the book. So I'm reading on page 47, actually at the top of page 47, and I want to get your thoughts on this, on how you physically have seen this or experienced this. It says, all thoughts which have been emotionalized, given feeling and mixed with faith begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent or counterpart. And so, my question, I can certainly think of things that I've said that I've wanted to do, but I've just kind of said it in passing. And it wasn't until something came up, something that made it important, where I put a lot of energy, a lot of emotion was tied to it. And anyone who's ever listened to me for more than 15 minutes usually expects that that emotion comes from something having to do with my daughter. So if I can attach my daughter to it somehow, as being why I need to do something, then all of a sudden things start happening. Has that ever, how has that happened with you, that you've attached emotion to a goal that you may have talked about for a while, it may have been on your list for a while, but once you attached emotion to it, you've noticed things started to happen?
Yeah, it's true, Galen. And it's interesting because you've got your daughter. I don't have children, but it's so easy to say, oh, I really want to be rich. But there's no, there, you just, it's hard to, that's not a thing. Do you know what I mean? It's so, ethereal or whatever. But when you start to think like, okay, I have a young nephew, I could change his life. I could leave a legacy for him. I have tons of, philanthropic things that I'm interested in. And then it starts to become real then when you visualize what your life is going to look like, not just like this big pile of money, but what is this going to do for my life, for my neighborhood, for my community. And that's when you can start to get excited about it, when it becomes, I don't have a why the way you have a why with your daughter, but I do have a lot of emotion associated with the power that money brings and the things that you can do with it, rather than actually just this kind of vague concept of riches.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, we all start with this vague concept of riches. I don't know that I've run into four kids who didn't say, "Well, I want to be a millionaire when I grow up," right? We all have this aspirational, it's almost ethereal view of what money is and what money means. But once we start really putting the emotion behind I like what you said, what I could do with the money, because it's really not about the money. It's about what I could do with the money, the lifestyle I could have. that I believe is associated with the money, that energy comes in. And then I'm also curious about, as I said earlier, about this idea of faith and how faith is different than belief, right? Because I can, as I said earlier, I can believe that this desk that I'm sitting at, I can believe that this desk is going to do what it's supposed to do. But if I'm thinking about the desk and wondering if it's actually going to work, I can't do all the other things that I'm trying to do. But once I have faith, where I'm not even thinking about it anymore, I'm just depending on it and doing other things, that's where the real magic happens. What's something that you've experienced that maybe in the beginning you learned the principles? You talked about real estate, you learned the principles, and you believe that they probably worked, but it wasn't until you said, okay, I can count on this, and therefore I'm going to go do other things. Has that ever happened with you?
It has, Galen, and it's interesting because, as you say, when you're not quite sure, then the energy you're putting out there is a lot of doubt and a lot of, it's like the opposite of what you actually want to attract in. It's like, oh, gee, am I really going to have this happen? And when I first started this journey, I actually was in a lot of debt, as I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I just felt like, okay, look, I'm going to draw this line in the sand. I'm going to get out of this debt. And it's once I sort of started to believe that I could get out of the debt, and it just took on a momentum of its own. And that's when the universe really just started to deliver. Strange things happened to me that are just unexplainable. One of the people, just as a silly example, this debt collector kept calling me, and I was just like, look, stop calling, and then I found out that that's illegal. And then my friend's an attorney, and he sued them, and I got all this money. And then it's like, okay, well, that worked out really well. So instead of owing the money, I actually got paid to have this debt. So just those kinds of things that really are just not logical. And that is the universe in action, and that seeing faith in action allows you to have faith. So it is kind of like a snowball effect. But yeah, that's.
I love it. Hey, Dr. Peter, I'm going to bring you in because I could take a one-on-one. I could be one-on-one with Christine for an hour. So
Yeah, we can't have that today, Galen, at all, man. So, Chris, love your story, even what you've been able to accomplish. This faith chapter conjures up a lot of stuff inside of me for sure. Galen mentioned the word earlier when he was talking. The word is fear. So I want to ask you, at some points in your life when you may have felt fear and had to overcome it. Before I go there, though, I want to say that this chapter gives us the pathway on how to get faith, how to receive faith. It actually starts out with a segment on how to develop faith, right? But then the book also goes and says faith is a state of mind which may be induced by auto-suggestion. You might be like, what is auto-suggestion? Maybe you have to read the book a little bit to kind of figure out what that is. It also goes on to say one last thing is that any idea, plan, or purpose may be placed in the mind through repetition of thought, which kind of correlates very well to this auto-suggestion. My question to you, Chris, is that we all have fear, which manifests in different ways, maybe self-doubt. It could be a whole lot of different things here. And how have you been able to overcome fear in your life historically? Maybe it's your low points in your life. Maybe it's just some things that you were holding on to. I just want to see how maybe this book was able to assist you with that, if possible.
So Peter, that's a great question. And I know a lot of people are probably asking the same thing.
Right.
And one of the things that really made a big difference to me is because you see a lot of, just as an example, you see a lot of people who have a lot of faith. They go to church every weekend or whatever, and they believe in God, and they'll pray to St. Anthony to find their keys, but they're not going to pray for something that they actually really believe in, like pray for money. Oh, that's not cool. That's not appropriate or whatever. But I think it comes down to, for me, is that self-confidence. And it's perfect that this chapter of faith contains the self-confidence formula, because if you don't believe that you deserve these things, you know, that goes hand in hand with fear. If you don't believe that you're worthy of having these things that you have this vague dream about, then you're never going to really have faith that they're going to come to you. So for me, I think that would be the answer to your question, is that turning point is memorizing and repeating over and over now for like 3 years, that self-confidence formula every single morning, that just is instrumental to me in staying on the path of attraction.
And I love what you just said there, because the chapter also goes on to say that this repetition of thought, this repetition of specifics, key words, affirmations, as they call autosuggestion, is a key in strengthening one's faith. So my follow-on question to that is, you know, how has this repetition, or even repetition of other sentences, phrases, how has that played a role in your life, if any?
It absolutely has, Peter. And every morning I say my self-confidence formula, and then I go on to say some other affirmations as things have bubbled up. You know what I mean? I think the further you go down this road, the more little things bubble up, and you realize that something that you heard when you were young,
Yeah.
that you took it as a fact. And then you discover that's not actually true, right? You're not actually, you know, rich people aren't really bad. That was something your mom told you that wasn't, you know, that didn't turn out to be true. And so as these silly little, you know, tapes, someone said, you know, you downloaded that program as a child and now you need to erase it. And that's that, you know, as those things bubble up, then I create an affirmation around that to say, you know, you are worthy of this, or you are, you know, lovable, or, you know, whatever the situation is, whatever the thing, the insecurity or whatever that has bubbled up, that I'll create an affirmation for that. And that becomes part of my morning routine.
That's awesome. And yeah, you know, it's funny, when I was younger, I was skeptical about affirmations. I thought just only crazy people repeated stuff over and over again. Now I'm that crazy person. So I think I'm in the same club with you. I don't know if you can call us crazy, but we're getting something right. So, and this is a phenomenal conversation about faith and even this auto suggestion. I'm excited for you to chime in on this.
Well, I think you both opened up a Pandora.
Pandora is Bach.
Well, I'm reclaiming that to call it something positive,
Ah.
because you are now walking into my world of the McNeil factor, self-confidence challenge. And Peter opened the door. I want to walk through that door. And I want you to share with our audience your experience with our Clarity Mastermind. Because as you were talking, and I remember you when, you see. So that's why I don't know if it was a good idea for me to interview you this morning, because I know too much. And I've seen you grow so phenomenally. And I know that this particular principle is a large reason why. But in order for our guests to really, 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 Chris, understand, how do you have faith? How do you grow your faith? And how do you go from level to level to level? Can you share with us your experience with the Clarity Mastermind? What time you wake up? What you do? No, I really want to go there, because you've also honored me and blessed me by also attending our island retreat. And Peter's going to talk to you later about your participating in you know, the annual meeting. And so can you share with us, though, because of what he brought up about the self-confidence formula, can you share with us your experience and walk us through what does that look like for you? Because I really want this experience to bless our listeners in understanding, no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, you can develop faith. But how does that, you know, how do you really do it? How do you do it?
Well, it's with your help, Anne. That's really what it boils down to. I had put out there, you know, that some things that I wanted to accomplish. And one of the things at the time was just that I wanted to learn about stock investing. And I was introduced to Anne, and she didn't really know me very well. And I just happened to sit down at the right time. And she turned to me and said, "Do you want to be in an investment club?" And I was like, "Yes." And so that sort of started my journey with Anne. And she's brought me through and brought me along with her with so many different, from the Black NSA Millionaire Mastermind to the Clarity Workshop. And Clarity, I mean, the way we started that Clarity Mastermind is with the self-confidence formula. We had to memorize it, then we had to, we had to write it, then we had to record ourselves saying it, and then we're going on. So to answer your question, Ann, I get up every morning at 4:00. I should say my alarm goes off at 4:00. This morning I actually woke up at 3:15 for some reason, but my alarm goes off at 4:00, and I take that hour and I will listen to normally something like Joseph Rodriguez, or maybe The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, or something like that. Just some type of positive, affirmational, and thought-provoking work. And then, at that point, I will, then 5:00, another alarm goes off, and then I transition to some other stuff. There's journaling. I walk on the beach every morning for an hour, and all that starts to set my day off in the right way, so that my mind is positive. One of the things that Abraham Hicks says is just like, well, can you just, when you wake up in the morning, is there some positive thing you can do? So it's like, oh, my bed is really warm and comfortable. And, like just getting into a happy, positive mindset. And then things just, good things happen to you. And then, faith is easier when good things are happening, I guess you could say. It just becomes a snowball effect.
Now, what you're doing, Chris, and I really want to make sure we all get this. You've made a decision to voluntarily program your own mind for success. Yes. By faith, you are believing that if you have a desire, which you do, for something greater than yourself and money, which I know you do, mm-hmm. then how do you become a better, and everybody's fill in the blank for yourself. And so I wanted her to walk through that, because one of the things we talked about in our Clarity Mastermind meeting this week, actually, I don't want to do this. Chris does not want to do this every single day. It is work. But can you share with us, Chris, why do you do it? Why do you go through these faith exercises every morning to program your mind? Because the book tells us that how you develop faith, and Peter said it, is through auto-suggestion and affirmations to, program your mind for that which you desire. But help us understand why. Why do you do it?
It's interesting. I forget who it is, but one of the people who I listen to says, one of the reasons that you're not succeeding is because you're conforming with the wrong percentage of the population, right? 95% of the population. My alarm used to go off at 7:30 in the morning, Ann. 7:30 in the morning is what time my alarm used to go off. And my life was just like everybody else's life. I got up, I went to work, I did my thing. And if that's the kind of life you want, great. But I wanted more. I wanted to have a life that could inspire other people. I wanted to have a life where I didn't have to think about money. I don't have to wonder, can I afford this? Can I go to this place? Can I do this thing? Can I travel to this country? I just had dreams and goals that I wanted to achieve. So I knew I couldn't be like that 95%. I had to be like the 5%, like yourself and like all of our co-hosts today, people who want and see a vision for themselves that is bigger than just, working and being a Walmart greeter. Not that there's anything against that. We need Walmart greeters, but I don't want to be one of those people.
Wow, I see Galen shaking his head. Oh, come on, Galen, get him.
Yeah, I actually had a question I wanted to ask, but I got messed up by when you said you're not succeeding because you are conforming with the wrong percentage of the population. That is just so powerful. You're running with the wrong kids, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
So my question, I'm trying to remember my question now, but I think my question was, one of the things you said earlier is that something like there's nothing that breeds faith like success. So once you have success, it's easier to have faith in something that seems to be working. and I can certainly identify with that. What was your, can you remember what was your all in moment? Because if you just, I mean, as you said, once you read the book the first time, it's kind of interesting. Not necessarily something I'm willing to execute against. I mean, it's kind of, some of the stuff's kind of silly when you just read it the first time. But what was that first moment that you had success and you're like, hey, there is something to this more than just the words on the page. There's something to this. Do you remember that all in moment?
It probably is the most magical thing I think that has happened to me. The most obviously magical was all that debt thing, because there was another thing that happened where I called one of the debt collectors called me and we made a deal that I was going to pay X amount per month. That's what I could afford, whatever it was, $150 a month. And when they sent the letter to confirm that, basically they made a mistake, a typo, and that like the $17,000 of debt, she said that it was going to be paid off in 6 payments of $150. And I said, okay, cut it out, and then I said, well, you sent me this letter, and she's like, no way. And same thing, I gave it to my friend who's an attorney. So that whole day, I mean, that stuff, it's just not real. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing, that is divine intervention. There's just no way that stuff happens. And it all happened and my debt was paid off and everything. Like, I don't know, $300,000 worth of debt was paid off within, I think, 8 months. It's just impossible. It's impossible.
Six payments of $150.
I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. I'm sorry.
You reminded me of a comment that I have yet to say, but I can't wait to say. I would love to have someone, a debt collector, call me and for me to say, look, I don't have the money. Unless you just need the practice, you might want to stop calling me. Right. And that's basically what you said. That's basically what happened. And I can see how that can be an all-in moment when those kinds of things start happening in your life because you're following these principles. It really does inspire you to want to follow them more.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. I want to just take a moment and share. We have more people listening to us today than ever, Chris. And so, with that thought in mind, I really want to engage our listeners on Facebook and also in the chat. If you have any questions for Chris, chat and let us know. We want to thank all of our friends from all of the many different groups and things that we're a part of. But, Chris, what does this future look like for you as you use these principles in your life and in your business? What's next for you?
Interesting, and because that keeps evolving. I really like, you achieve a goal and then you think, wow, I can do more. There's even more that I could do. I just recently got I became a certified life coach because of something that one of my podcast guests said. I mean, the podcast has been this great vehicle for people to be delivered to me, as far as their wisdom. And, you've been a guest on there several times. It's just, there's so many things that are just meant for me. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, thank you. And I hope this helps somebody else also. But I feel like I see myself having, and I actually have started this. I actually have now got this on Eventbrite that I'm starting a mastermind for people who want to become real estate investors. And like a millionaire mastermind, because that's what it all comes down to. We can all say, oh, we want this money, but if your mind is not ready to receive it, you're just going to do things to screw it up. Take it from an expert at screwing things up.
Awesome.
Hey, Christine,
Peter,
there's a question that's come in over the chat, and Diane is actually calling you out. She's like, look, I can barely get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Are you telling me I got to get up at 4 o'clock in order to be successful? Why in the world? And again, that goes back in that category of it's crazy to people who don't understand the benefit. So why do you continue to wake up at 4 o'clock at this ungodly hour? What's the benefits that you've seen that encourage you to want to do that consistently and repeatedly?
Well, you know, it all depends what time your day starts, what time your life starts. I mean, I have to leave the house by sunrise because I made a commitment to myself that I will be on the beach at sunrise to see the sun come up. So I have to work backward from there. So if I want to be able to journal and I want to be able to listen to these things and I want to be able to get my mind in the right place, that's what time my day has to start. But, and also Ann and I are in a competition to see who can get up earlier in the morning.
You're
Tell
gonna lose
everything.
that one.
Just tell everything.
You're gonna lose that one.
But you just, I guess this is a cop out, but until you've done it, you can't see the benefits. It seems crazy to everybody, and would seem crazy to me. I told you my alarm used to go off at 7:30, and I thought I was, you know, I thought I was lucky to be able to get up at 7:30 because everybody else had to get up early to go to work. But it changes your whole brain, right? It's like, if you think of your brain as a computer, it just reprograms your brain for the day so that you're looking for opportunities instead of looking for fail. I mean, the pandemic is a perfect example to this, right? You can, so easy to get sucked down the drain of all the people and things and stuff that's going on. But I can tell you that it hasn't impacted me at all, except to give me some time when I don't have to go to the theater and go to do stuff at night, to focus on other projects that I had maybe put to the side. So it's all mindset. And if you take the time to set your brain in the right place, then you're going to become addicted to it. I promise.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll jump in really quick, Ann, if that's okay. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please.
Absolutely. Just so much stuff. Christine, I've actually written down that quote that Galen mentioned, and I have a book of quotes, and now you're added to that. I want to say that you're not succeeding because you're conforming with the wrong percentage of the population. So if you see that somewhere and I quote you, just know that was me.
Thank you.
But one of the things that has resonated with me, Chris, is what you said about even the getting up early and the auto suggestion and the affirmations, is that, you know, this is a choice you've made to become more faithful, to accomplish your goals, and then you became intentional.
Yes.
So for those of you who are listening, please don't hesitate to jump in the chat or ask questions. But, you know, where in your life are you not being intentional, but still have all these dreams and goals and objectives that you want to accomplish, but you're not making the sometimes challenging or painful steps to get up earlier in order to accomplish them? And Chris handled them head on. And sure, maybe someday she might have even gotten up late, but that's okay because the road's not going to be straight, right? And then going back to what you said, who are you conforming with? And I think this is a great segue into who are you surrounding yourself with? Who is in your mastermind? Who is in your accountability group? And Chris, you know very well that we have an accountability meeting annually. And we've actually had 2 this year. One was live and one was virtual. And I'm a big fan of these accountability meetings because it's almost like, for me, it's hitting the reset button on the year to also reflect on my life, past as well as future. And I want to just get a little quick blurb about how these accountability meetings, what they have done for you. Why do you continue to come to meetings like this and surround yourself with these types of individuals?
Thank you, Peter. You started talking about what area of your life isn't working out the way you want it to. And that's the perfect segue into, because that's exactly what I thought of when you said that, is Ann's 10 areas of your life and creating your annual report, where, I mean, it's such a powerful exercise where you actually look at the past year, because you might have forgotten all the great things that you accomplished. Sure. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, that was this year. Oh, great. And you start to feel good. And then that helps you to set goals for next year. And you don't forget about your fitness goals, and you don't forget about, learning and educating yourself and your family and all those things. They all come together to make a beautiful, holistic life. And there's nothing like, I mean, who is that says it's Charlie Tremendous Jones, but he quoted somebody else to say, you are the sum of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. And it's so easy to surround yourself with negative people. I mean, they're everywhere, right? You got to search for that special 5%. And that's who you see at the accountability meeting. Is like a love fest. I mean, there's so much positivity and so much love and so many people showing so much gratitude. It's just, I was very, very grateful to be able to be at the in-person one this year, because it's just so, as soon as you walk in the room, you can feel it. And the last 2 years, I brought my boyfriend as well, and he was very skeptical. He's not necessarily into all this stuff, but he said, oh, I know he felt very intimidated when we were creating our annual report. He's like, oh my God. But when he walked in the room, he was just like, whew, he could feel the love everywhere. And he was so elated. And I said, see? He met Anne, she came right up and gave him a hug. This was 2 years ago. And he's like, I love her. She's so wonderful. I'm like, yes, exactly. Now you see what this is all about. It's just, I've never, especially, well, all right. So if 95% of the world is negative and 5% is positive, when you find a group of positive, happy, successful people, you just got to like glom onto them. And that's what I've done. I've stuck to Anne like gum on her shoe. She can't get rid of me.
I love that. I love that. That quote. Galen even put it in the chat. It said a couple of different ways. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I actually even say you are the average of your 5 closest friends, right? And so, those of you who are listening, if you think about that, you are the average of your 5 closest friends, and that even takes into consideration your family, who can sometimes be negative, right? So, I'm not telling you to leave your family, but if you're looking to get more people into your life who are more positive, that 5%, like Chris is mentioning, this accountability meeting is one way. Masterminds are another way. Galen holds me accountable on a regular basis, and it is painful, Anne McNeil. Painful. Just letting you know.
Okay.
I'm
All
a
right,
nice guy. What are you talking about?
Wow, we're going to go ahead and prepare to wrap up. And so we're going to ask, actually, we're going to ask Peter and Chris and Galen to share any thoughts from the virtual event we just hosted this Saturday. Any thoughts? Let's start with you, Peter, then we go to Galen, then we go to Chris.
Yeah, I'll even finish off by saying this there. And every time I go to this event, or events like this, and I'm looking forward to, and I think we're getting ready to have more of these events, Anne McNeil. They're excited about that, because I think I need check-ins throughout the year. But every time I go, it allows me to take a step back, analyze what Chris has mentioned, the past, where I am in the present, and also the future, take stock of my life and make better plan strategies in order to execute better, to be intentional as Chris is doing. And it's not enough for me to have these goals and dreams. I desire and have faith to accomplish them. And that's why I continue to return.
Thank you. Galen?
Yeah, this is a great way to get connected with more people to help you even out that average. Because that quote that we talked about earlier, it's not, you're not the average of the 5 people that you like the most. You're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So if you're hanging out with people, although you might like them, but if they're negative, there is no way you can escape that. And so you've got to, I'm in a job where I've got a career where I listen to people talk about their problems, right? And that literally is my job. I listen to people talk about their problems, and I try to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. If I'm going to maintain the kind of mental outlook that I need to accomplish my goals, I've got to hang out with Peter James. I've got to hang out with Anne McNeil. I've got to hang out with these people more, so that they become the average of who I am rather than my clients. And, we had a question in the chat from Thad that says, how do you tell an old close friend that you have altered your thoughts and thinking, and that you don't vibe the same way anymore? I don't know that. I would love to toss this back to everyone, but I don't know that I can have that conversation with a close friend. What I tend to do is I'm just going to change the things that I talk about while I'm around them. I'm gonna stay focused on the things that I'm trying to do and how I want to vibe. And then I'm going to spend time with Dr. Peter James and then Ann McNeil and then Christine to make sure that I'm, again, not being dragged down to my old ways of thinking, but I'm continuing to be elevated. And then hopefully I can lift that close friend up. But if I can't make anybody do anything, right? If I can't bring them up, I got to make sure that I don't get dragged down with them. So any thoughts from you guys? What advice would you give to Thad?
Hey, let me jump in on that really quick, Galen. I'll pass the baton over to Chris, maybe. You know, sometimes that could be a family member, a close family member, a really close family member, right? And I don't think we're suggesting that you even depart from your loved ones like that, but spend more time with new ones who are going in the direction that you're going. And you know what's going to happen to the old friends? They're going to either see it and jump on board, or see it and filter away. I've seen it happen. Firsthand. Chris?
Hey, reminds me of this old joke from a comedian who's I don't even know when he passed away, but Robin Harris used to tell this joke about after he's made some money, goes around his friends and they say, "Well, hey man, you've changed. You're not the same." And his answer was, "You doggone right, I changed. Why would I want to go back to what I used to be? Why would I go back? You absolutely right, I've changed." And so, Peter, that just came to mind that you've got to live in this space that's consistent with who you're trying to be, rather than always going back to make other people comfortable. So,
Yeah, I don't think
Chris?
you have to ditch your friends. I think they're just going to atrophy or they're going to come along with you.
Yeah.
You know, it's just life. They're not going to resonate with who you are now, and that's okay. Just see less of them. But to answer the other question about the annual meeting, I have to say one of the most amazing things for me was hearing all the kids that are in their mastermind. That to me was so inspirational. And I'm sure we all just sat there and thought, wow, I wish my parents were that cool that they would have got me into this when I was so young. But I just can't imagine the heights that they're going to achieve at 7 years old, 9 years old, that they're just way more together than I am today, that I want to be around when they're 30 and 40 years old and see what kind of amazing things that they've accomplished.
Well, I want to just mention a couple of comments that's in the chat, and I want to thank everybody for participating. Carolyn Clarkson says, sometimes you just have to let go. Imelda said, I've noticed because my language, my atmosphere changed, and those around me change. And so I think to each his own. And what everybody, all of us are realizing is that you must have a dream to have a dream come true for yourself. And a desire you cannot give people. If they don't have it, then, whatever way works best for you in terms of, and I have a lot of my friends on here, and one in particular, Miss Carolyn Clarkson, she talked about how I never let go. And now Chris is saying that she's glue on my shoe. So, so I think for each one of us, we have to become whatever God is calling you to be, because there are people who will only hear your voice. And by faith, we walk by, not by the sight in the eyes of others. And so I want to see, we have a couple of more comments here. We'll read those and then we'll prepare to wrap up. Thad says, that is a fact. That's what happened in my, yes, I'll read this. I started to read it before I read it, so I'm gonna say what he said here. He said, that is a fact. That's what happened in my marriage. And it's a painful process, but it's necessary. Thank you so much. That is necessary if you, I want to keep coming back to the faith chapter, but if you have faith for something greater, because you could settle for something less. And we want to thank you, Chris, because you've shown us today that you chose not to settle for something less. And I really want to publicly thank you for everything you've meant and that you're meaning and that you will mean, not just in my life, but in the lives of others. And I'll tell a little secret about Chris. And she know I love saying this publicly. But when Chris and I met for the very first time, we were at Disney at a National Speakers Association conference. And I was in the process of starting a National Association of Black Women in Construction investment club. And I was on the phone, which most of you know I normally am. And I'm walking through Disney, not knowing that Chris is walking right beside me all of the way. I did not notice until I had to get away from everybody because I'm on the phone having a meeting. I go into this pavilion and I sit in, listen to this, everybody. I sit in an auditorium, an empty auditorium. Did I say the auditorium was empty? How many people are in an empty auditorium? Take a guess. Can everybody put up their fingers? How many people in an empty auditorium? No, Peter. They can't. Let me change the view so everybody can see all of us. How many people in an empty auditorium? Put up your fingers.
0.
No, 2. Me and this lady named Chris McCarron, who comes behind me in an empty auditorium, and she sits right next to me in an empty auditorium. And then I noticed she was there because she sat right next to me. Close enough. This was prior to COVID. I could touch her. I'm on the phone talking about starting an investment club with my National Association of what? Black Women in Construction. And for those of you who are listening on podcasts or you're listening on the radio, I am Black and Chris is not. So I turned to Chris, a total stranger. I don't know what her name is. I know absolutely nothing about her. And I say to her, because we're trying to figure out who would be interested. And I say to her, without even saying hi, I say, would you like to be an investment club? This is by faith. I want all of us to understand. We start off talking about faith and we're ending up talking about faith. Because you see, faith is that thing you desire to go toward, like Gayla talked about, that share. And you are trusting that it's going to be there for you. But you must have a desire first before you get to faith. That's why the desire chapter comes before the faith chapter. Chris said yes. We started with 50 people, everybody, in this investment club. And you can go to betterinvesting.org if you'd like to know more about how to start and run an investment club. We started with 50 people. 3 years ago, Chris?
Yeah.
4. 3.
It could be 4 actually, because we spent a year doing our things. Yeah.
Almost 4 years ago. And guess who became our president?
I just want to clarify, I was voluntold to be the president.
Guess who was voluntold to become our president?
That's usually how things work around Ms. Ann McNeil.
You see a theme developing.
It has been, listen, everybody, this has been one of the most phenomenal experiences. And I was blessed. I was telling our co-hosts, and I know I'm taking executive privilege. This is why normally they don't allow me to host these meetings. Because if it were anybody else, we would be done, but we're not done yet. Okay, just one more minute. I was blessed. I was sharing with our co-hosts. I was blessed. I received a call from a truck driver last week on my drive home from Miami to West Palm. And he said, Miss McNeil, my name is X. I'm a truck driver. And I just want to let you know how much you bless me, all of your co-hosts, because I drive long distance. And every Saturday morning, I tune in to Facebook Live and I listen to the podcast for Think and Grow Rich with all of you. And you've blessed me so much that I'm decided I want to learn more. And I also want to become an investor, and I want to learn how to get into an investment club. And that's how I want to end this, because by faith, whatever you're seeking is seeking you. And Chris, I want to thank you publicly, and I've always thanked you privately for being so instrumental in my life, because Chris helped us by knowing nothing. A lot of us, we were just starting in terms of understanding how to start and run an effective and profitable investment club. And she, using her life skills, you know, helped lead us into a profitable direction as investors. And so as masterminders and as co-hosts, we want to thank all of you. But first, before we do that, we want to ask each of you, please, start with you, Galen, then Peter. We're going to wrap up with Chris. Can you let everybody know how to reach you? Because you're all blessing so many people, and even those who are yet unborn. Galen?
Oh, absolutely. This has been an incredible show. You can get a hold of me at Galen at killglobalcoaching.com. That's KILN globalcoaching.com. If you just want to hear my voice, you can check out my new podcast called Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We have so much fun. It is now available on iHeartRadio, Amazon, iTunes, literally anywhere you want to consume podcasts. Type in Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, and you can hear from me.
Awesome.
Awesome stuff, folks. Hey, Dr. Peter James, the high performance coach. You can find me anywhere on social media at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAjames, or shiftyourmindset.com. Great show today there, Ann McNeil.
Awesome. Yes, yes. Chris?
So you can reach me. My email is bostonreguru@gmail.com, and my website is Boston RE Guru, and my YouTube is Boston RE Guru. And the podcast, if you want to hear about financial independence and long life, that is the Get Your Fill podcast. And the website for that is getyourfillpodcast.com.
All right.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We also want to, I have to give a shout out to our regulars, none other than the other Mr. Bingham, Mr. Regis Bingham, Ron Williams. Now we have some new people, Thad, Valencia Wyman, and of course, Miss Misty Campbell, Myra, Regina, all of you, Laverne, Johnny, thank you for coming back. John, Jopans, Helen, Francis, Esther Lambert, Imelda, always there, Carolyn, Camilla, and so many of you that are calling in with your phone numbers. I don't see your names, so I can't mention them. But Wyman, all of you, we want to really just thank you for making us a part of your day, and you're part of our day, because we do this for all of you, and you encourage us by just continuing to just show up. This is your show. These principles are principles that are for life. The money is great, but there's nothing greater than serving and being of service. All right. So we want to thank all of you for joining us today. Join us every single week. And also, my name again is Ann McNeil, and I am the master builder, helping you to build a wealthier business and life. You can connect with me by texting the word Ann, ANN, at 55678. That's text the word Ann, ANN, at 55678. I also want to encourage you to join us every Friday. We host a free Think and Grow Rich accountability call. You get 1 minute to share your aha. You can go to Eventbrite and get that link. It's Think and Grow Rich Friday accountability call. And with that, I want to take a page out of Ursula's book. She's not here right now. We want to thank her for joining us as a part of what we do. But you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. I say that because I'm working on that. Y'all pray for me on YouTube. But anyway, we want to thank all of you for joining us today. And we will see you next week, same place, same time. And possibly, we're looking to elevate the show. And we may be on a different type of platform, but you have to come back and see. All right. So with that, we want to thank all of you, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.